Well, hello. I'm Tamara, and today I'm going to talk to you about men with borderline personality disorder. And I don't think it's as easy to recognize as it is in women. It seems like women stand out more, but it's harder to detect in men. But there are men who do have borderline personality disorder, and it may manifest a little differently. Now, when you think about how borderline personality is created, some people say they experienced trauma, some people did not. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't something there that triggered it. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use two examples of guys that I just recently saw on reality shows that I think will help to make the picture a little bit clearer. But I noticed that in relationships, when you look at relationships, for example, with people without personality disorders, and you notice the differences between women and men, there are differences. It seems like in general, not always, but women tend to attach a lot quicker, a lot faster. And that's the same thing with borderline personality disorder that I notice. They become clingy a lot quicker, a lot faster. Whereas the men seem to be able to protect themselves better. So with borderline men, they tend to be stronger than what you would think they would be, because borderlines generally are trying to find someone to attach to because there was a break in attachment at some point when they were children. They are afraid of abandonment. They're terrified of it. So you would think that because of that fear that they would just latch on to anybody. But what I notice in men is they still hold they still hold to a good set of standards. Some of them do. I'm not going to allow you to mistreat me. Goodbye. Abandonment fears or not. So they seem to be a little bit more steady in that area. So let me talk about a couple of the guys that I noticed, and I'll point out some of the criteria that I noticed. So the good thing about this show is it was a marriage show, so you got to observe them in marriage relationships. Guy number one, I don't know what happened in his life. I don't know what kind of early childhood experiences that he had, but I know at some point he lost a brother, and I don't know how young he was. But with him, he had what you call dead eyes. You could see this blankness in his eyes. He would go into dissociative states, is what I noticed. And you could see him completely checked out. So with his wife one day, he stopped talking to her for an entire day. Now, he was triggered into that state, but he was brushing his teeth, and it was like he was there, but he wasn't there. He wasn't acknowledging her. She was like, hello, are you okay? Is everything all right? Nothing. No response. Just kept brushing his teeth, kept walking around her like she wasn't there. He had checked out. He was in a dissociative state, and it lasted for a full day. He also showed antagonism or hostility, which is persistent or frequent angry feelings, anger or irritability in response to minor slights and insults. So he would go after the camera crew like you wouldn't believe. It was shocking. He would attack them, he would get in their face, he would mock them, and it was like, where is this coming from? What have they done to you? You signed up for this show, so you knew they were going to be filming everything that you do. But he would constantly have these huge rages against them, and it would just stop production. He would tell them, get out of my face. And there have been several seasons of this show. I've only seen one. Well, I've seen a couple of people get irritated a little bit and express frustrations in a moment, but not like this. It kept happening repeatedly. So it was crazy anger that made no sense at all. He had a lot of emotional dysregulation. He was very, very moody. He would come close and then he would withdraw. So very unstable emotional experiences and frequent mood changes. He also did something that borderlines do where they have issues with identity. They don't have a self. And they usually have a lot of personality, but they can't tell you anything about themselves. They can't describe themselves. If you show them personality types, they're not going to be able to identify it. They are very much detached from their personality and who they are, which is a direct result of not bonding appropriately, or there being, issues with object permanence. It's like there was no stability in their early childhood days. So his wife would be like, let's have a deep conversation. And he would say, okay, you go first. And so she would ask him something, and then he would make her answer it. And then he would say, yeah, I do the same thing. And he would, whatever she said, he would say back the exact same thing, to the point where she was like, why do you, I want you to tell me about you, not about who I am. You're just repeating everything that I say. And it's because they have difficulty going inward, looking internally. In fact, he often talked of himself in the third person, which is something that a lot of borderlines will do. They will say things like, if their name is Dave, they might say, what do you think, Dave? Dave, what do you think? And they refer to themselves as she and her, and instead of I a lot of times. So he clearly, it was like there was just emptiness inside. Like he couldn't have any conversation. Because think about it, when you are building intimacy, you want to have those deep conversations to find out what your personality is like. And he was unable to connect with any pieces of his personality. So that's what stands out about guy number one for me. Guy number two was interesting as well. He was quieter. He didn't have the angry outbursts, even though my guess is that he probably could in a different situation. I made a video called Maladaptive Daydreamers and Liars, so you might want to check out that video, because this guy was a pathological liar, seemingly, and it drove his wife nuts. And that's why I did a video on it, because some people use it, it seems like they use lying in place of reality. It's almost like that they can create whatever world they want to create with lies. And it was just very confusing. But I think it was more so attached to identity issues, and also him having dissociative episodes as well, just in a different way. So he couldn't keep his story straight. He would get lost and confused in the details, and the details would change and not match and not line up. They would just switch. And sometimes I've worked with people before who I think have borderline personality disorder, where someone will say, you did this, you did that, you attacked me, you punched at me, you said this, and the person will go, no, I didn't. I never ever did that. And they're so convincing, and people around them will say, they're just liars. They're just liars. But I don't think so. I think they dissociate. I really do. And they can sort of block out, because remember, they had some type of trauma in their childhood, generally speaking. And so they have learned to block out trauma and things that are upsetting to them. And so even if it's an argument, they can block that out. And then now all of a sudden, I don't know what you're talking about. That never happened. So this guy was always having these scenarios where he could not recall. It was like he was recalling events, but things never made any sense. And his wife would just go nuts. Like, you are such a liar. You're always lying. Tell the truth. The other thing about this guy is that his mother gave him two family members when he was, I think he said, about 9 months old. That is a critical period where babies start to attach. If you notice, they'll start clinging to people, and that's that's normal, because they're starting to identify, I'm separate from you, or you're mommy, I'm not you, they're attaching, and bonding is a way to become healthy. And that was a critical period that she gave him to someone else. And then when he turned 3 years old, she died. And so all of this trauma is happening when in the first 3 years of life, it's thought to be a critical time period for bonding and attaching. And it's also a period where borderline personality is more likely to develop. In that same section, they also talk about dissociative states under stress and the criterion. Because borderlines don't have an identity, they will often latch on to one to define who they are. So, for example, like I guess the easiest example I can give is they may be one culture, but they totally identify with another one. And so they try to emulate that and they try to be that. And this is who I am because it gives them more of a sense of who they actually are. And they kind of act according to those guidelines. So you see that a lot in borderlines. They don't have a sense of self, but they're going to latch onto one if they can find one. And sometimes they will become you, like I am who you are, which is kind of what that other guy was trying to do. What guy number 2 was doing was he was trying to establish himself through lies. I can be anyone and anything I want to be. I can be as impressive as I want to be through my lies. In fact, he constantly lied about what his career was. That was always changing. Something didn't work out, so now I'm this and now something else. He told her that he was going to take her to his yoga studio where he taught classes, and when he took her there, she found out that he was actually the janitor, not an instructor like he said that he was. And there were just several other lies about jobs that really bothered his wife because she was trying to figure out, okay, how much money do we make? How are we going to pay our bills? And she could never get a straight answer. He would falsify records and make all kinds of changes, and it just really upset her. But he was tying his identity to that. Really, he was just trying to survive. He was just trying to make it. And that was a way for him to cope with his identity issues. He also had emotional liability, which is unstable emotional experiences and frequent mood changes. So his emotions were easily aroused, so he would often start to cry. See some signs of anxiousness, where he would have feelings of nervousness, tenseness, or he would worry about the negative effects of past unpleasant experiences and future negative possibilities, which he talked about to her because he said he got made fun of as a child, and he learned that he could make his world any way that he wanted, and that way he could fit in better. Deep fear of rejection is what also caused him to lie. And by the way, the job issue is listed under self-direction, which is instability in goals, aspirations, values, and career plans, and he was all over the place with that. He told her that he had just accepted a principal position, and then it became an after-school program director. He would also show signs of impulsivity in the sense of acting on a momentary basis without a plan or consideration of outcomes. So he would make up all of this stuff, not thinking, okay, they're going to fact check me, but that's what he did. But the other thing about guy number 2 is they paired him with someone who to me was clearly obsessive compulsive personality disorder, and she had lots of rigid, strict rules that she governed him with, that he had to follow. She made them go to bed in bathrobes, and she would just talk to him like this and be very robotic, and these are the rules and this is what we're going to go by. And he seemed to like being put in a straitjacket. And on one hand, that upset him because he could never do anything right. And he already had issues with his identity. And so every little thing he did, she would criticize. Why are you holding that fork that way? The other thing is, people said guy number 1 was with a narcissist, possibly. He told her she was a narcissist. That's just kind of something to give you an idea of what borderline personality can look like on a male. So if you want me to do more videos like this, then be sure to like the video, subscribe, and share this video with other people. And I'll see you on the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.